All right, we're back, and it's COMP 2007. It's week 10, lesson 10, part 2. We're rudely interrupted by people that came into the, our class, but now it's done. And we're going back to what we were doing, which is setting up our Visual Studio 2013 for our new application. So I'm going to go, if you notice, I got all kinds of little labs I was doing myself. New project, right? New project. And we want to do this ASP.NET web application. I'm going to call this project, which I'm going to put on GitHub for you guys. Not that it's going to help me, right? But I'll try and put it there anyway. I'll call it, oh, wait a minute. I'll call it COMP 2007 lesson 10, part 1. And we might have a part 2. We'll see how it goes. But right now, lesson 10, part 1 is the one I'm going to be calling it. Okay. And then I'm going to press OK. When I go to this next screen, my recommendation to you is you click empty, right? If you click web forms, you'll get the scaffold, which we don't want. We want this empty. But we also want to click here on web forms, this added folders in our core reference for this thing. So click this. Do not click this for now. Leave this host in the cloud thing blank, all right, as we move forward. Let's press OK. It's going to kick off this crazy file that we have here. And there's a couple things I want to do. I want to kind of minimize or unpin this stuff. And I definitely want to unpin this stuff. And I want to probably unpin this stuff just to make it blank like this, right? There's a couple things that I added into my project to make it a little easier for myself, just FYI, right? So again, if I look at my Solution Explorer, it's nothing there really, except for a couple of stand-ins, right? So I want to kind of kick off my stuff quickly, and I want you to follow me. So the way to do this, of course, is to add in a couple new tools. So I went and did an extension. Again, a couple tools that I added in here is the Bootstrap Snippet Pack. All right, Bootstrap Snippet Pack. If you add that in, it's going to help you with some snippets, right? So we can make that Bootstrap stuff work quicker for us instead of like taking forever and ever, right? Bootstrap Snippet Pack. But these are the things that I did in my travels, huh? Just for you guys. How about that? My little labs. Because I was getting tired of doing things by hand. Okay, this one. Second thing is, I also, just for people who weren't here or who didn't know how to do this properly before, I did add in that crazy extension, which is the Web Forms Scaffold. I'm going to mention it again. I will be using that again. So if I go to Web Forms, if I search for Web Forms in my stuff that's already installed, you see I have this Web Forms Scaffolding. If you don't have that for today, again, you'll have issues. If you are using the local machine in front of you, you'll have issues. It will not work with Web Forms Scaffolding because of the version that you're using. So it's better off. You're better off using, the machine that's in your lap, as opposed to the machines on the desk. All right, that would be bad. Okay, so I've got this stuff here, this web scaffolding stuff, and I need these two pieces of the stuff that I've added in. Those are the two I need. So download that other one, which is the Bootstrap Snippets. Okay, so now that I have Bootstrap Snippets, I want to engage myself with a master page. Remember how we did master page? I'm going to right-click on my project. I'm going to click Add. I'm going to add in, because I have this before, master page, Web Forms master page. Now you could simply, that's one way. You can also go through New Item, and you could go to Master Page, Web Forms master page, which is way in the bottom over here. Right, Web Forms master page. You could do it that way as well. I'm going to do it through this way. I'm just showing you different ways of doing this because I already have done it. Web Forms master page. Okay, so now here we want to call this something like front end or default or whatever, main. Call it whatever you like. And for me, I'm calling it default. The default master page, right? And what this does is it creates this ugly scaffold, right? That it does nothing for me, and I have to replace most of it anyway, right? Now, the quick way to do it is now that I have my Bootstrap, stuff, right? In there, I'm going to replace it. But first, before we get to using that, I have to include Bootstrap, and I also have to include Jquery inside my model. So let's go right-click, and I want to go into Manage NuGet Packages. And while we're here, we're going to add in a few packages. Let's do it all at once. All right, so one thing I want to put in is my Bootstrap package. I'm going to install that one. Right, so install Bootstrap. Get ready. I'm going to go to my Jquery package and add that one. All right, it's my Bootstrap and Jquery's in. Right? If you notice in mine, these are the most popular framework. I put this most downloads as the way I'm doing relevant download. One thing we will need, and my PowerPoint is just to go back and do this later, but we're here now, and we might as well, you know the case of the might as wells, right? It's a good thing and a bad thing. Might as well, we're going to add in another one. I'm slowing down so people can catch up. That's why I'm talking. But the case of the might as wells is when you're doing construction, right? And Cody and I are building a house. Sorry, Cody, I missed you last week. And Cody and I were building a house, and then Cody says, Tom, I want to knock down this wall. And we knock down the wall, and we see some old pipe. And so Cody says, well, you know, the wall is down. Well, might as well replace the pipe, right? But it's not in our project, right? Guys, please don't replace the pipe in your projects, okay? What I mean by that is it's going to increase your scope. That's the negative thing about might as wells. It's going to increase your scope because you can go, well, we're here. We might as well add this. Don't add it, all right? Stick to your requirements, and you'll be good. But in this case, the might as well is good because we don't want to come back here. So we're just going to put in provider. If I type in providers at the top, what I want is this web Microsoft ASP.NET Universal Providers. I don't want the core package alone. I want this one. That's the Universal Providers that includes everything. All right, so it's not just the core package. It has a dependency of the core package, which will be included, but I want to take the second one down. So the one that says Microsoft ASP.NET Universal Providers. All right, and then I want to click Install. And then I press I accept. When I got this, it adds in a bunch of other crap in the background. I don't have that. I don't have any security. I mean, that's a piece I need. All right. Okay, so I've kind of added in a couple of pieces in my NuGet package manager here. I also know that I'm going to need friendly URLs because later on we're going to do that scaffold. Might as well add it in. This is another good might as well. So I'm going to type in friendly URLs. I don't want to go back to the well here to do it again. So I'm going to go to friendly URLs. And if you notice, it's this first one, ASP.NET friendly URLs. I'm going to add that in and click Install. And I accept. And this will put in these two pieces of more code. We're just adding more stuff to our packages. I'm going to click Close now. That's enough. Now, if you notice, there's a couple things here. Remember friendly URLs. In order for us to make this work, right, we need to add in these pieces that are missing. And I want to show you a quick and dirty way how to do this. So I'm going to take this root config register roots that comes from your README file here, and I'm going to copy it. And then we're going to go into our global ASAX file, right? Global ASAX file. I'm going to right-click on this thing, and I'm going to, or double-click onto it, and it's going to take me to, the CS file on the back end. If you notice, this is my application start file. I'm going to just kind of minimize this thing for a second, or unpin it. Inside my application start method, I want to paste this thing, but it gives me an error. And it gives me an error because I need that using statement. So how do I add this using statement in without going back to the README file?
I think if you right-click, there's some way to add it.
Well, there could be, but if you do this, if you just click onto it, right? And if I press Control dot, it gives me this thing that says using statement system web routing, which is what I want to add in there. So Control dot is the new shortcut you should be using today. We will be using it a couple times today. Okay, so click, click, click. It adds the using statement in the right location, and we're going to press Save. So that piece is done. So that little workaround to make our friendly URLs work is all taken care of in our global ASAX file. Okay, cool. We've got our global ASAX file. We've got our root providers. We've got everything we need to get going, right? Other than we're going to add in later on our ADO.NET data model. That's the only piece we're going to go back to the well for. Right? But for now, the horse has enough water to continue in the desert, okay? Let's continue moving, huh?
I have a complaint about the root table. It doesn't exist. Is that?
That's what I just did. So you have to go like one of these, go back to the global.asax file, right? So,
yeah, I put it in. That's when I started.
So if you go to here, and if you're going to see this root table,
yeah.
You're going to go control dot, or control decimal, if you will.
Okay.
And if you do control decimal, it'll come up with a little pop-up that says, hey, you need this using statement. Try it. Control and decimal. We have to be hovering over it, or actually on it. You got it? All right, so once we get past this piece and we're ready to go, now we're going to add in our bootstrappy stuff, right? So what's the quick way of doing Bootstrap? Well, like I said before, We don't want to quite get rid of all this stuff yet, okay? But I want to kind of go underneath my HTML as a quick and dirty. If I go to Tools, and if I go to Code Snippet Manager, or you can also use the shortcuts Control-K, Control-B. Let's use the shortcut, see what I'm talking about. So Control-K, Control-B, it comes up with this Code Snippet Manager, right? I want to choose Bootstrap. Now, because I've installed my Bootstrap code snippets, right, I just showed you where to get that. And if you notice, if I go all the way down, right, it has a bunch of different things, eh? Look at all this stuff that comes with Bootstrap, right? Well, one of the main ones, if you want to know, without touching any of these ones here, if I want to go to like just the Bootstrap default stuff, like a default for Bootstrap, right? If you look, there's like every kind of nav pill, panel, blah, blah, whatever. You don't have to even type any of this in again. It's just the word Bootstrap, like this. So if I type in Bootstrap and press a dash, or sorry, tab, I get all this. Bam, right? I get all this stuff that comes up and is generated. So this is good, right? Why is this good? Because I don't have to type in all these meta tags. All these meta tags, I'm going to take this. And you know what? The template I'm not going to take. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go up here into the head of my document and drag that in. Right? And you know what? I also want to change my lang to English without me typing that in. So I'm just going to copy that. It's already done for me, right? So why am I going to do it from scratch? If Tommy don't have to do that, Tommy not going to do it, right? There it is, HTML5. Yeah. I'm just telling you, if you go Bootstrap and dash, I didn't add anything else, just the code snippets. When you download Bootstrap code snippets, that piece, if you download that in your extensions, right? You have to may have to reboot your Visual Studio. You'll get Bootstrap.
Yeah, you have to reboot. That's why I was behind there.
Okay, so once I've done that, I'm going to continue going here. I've got a bunch of stuff. I don't need these things, these pieces here. I just need that top piece for the Bootstrap. So I'm going to get rid of all this.
Tom, can you repeat which one you picked?
Bootstrap.
Oh no, for the one you added in.
How did I add it in? Oh, you guys didn't do it when I was telling you.
We're helping people who know how to.
Blah, 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 la, la, la. Let's see what happens. Tools. Extensions and updates. If you go to extension updates, you see this Bootstrap Snippet Pack. That's the one you need.
Okay, I got it.
Bootstrap Snippet Pack by Eric Lebetsamer. Right? What a good guy Eric is, that guy. Huh? If it wasn't for him. Okay, so I got this. That's one Bootstrap snippet I need, right? I definitely don't need this. Oh, see what I did? I did the wrong, I erased the wrong thing here. Let me just undo. Undo. Bup, 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 bup. I meant to put that here. Okay, and let's get rid of my zeal. I did all that in my zeal. Okay, let's get rid of all that. And now that I have my little placeholder stuff, I do want to change my content placeholder, this part here. I want to rename this to main content. That's what I need there, for sure, main content. You may want to think about another placeholder we may need to use if I'm logged in, right? I want my main content when I'm not logged in, and then I want to have a navbar when I am logged in. That's a cheap and dirty way to do it, right? Remember, it's only going to render when I tell it to, right? So if I'm logged in, then show this. If I'm not logged in, then show this, right? That's what I want it to do. How do I do that? Okay, so that's the first piece I need to put in there. The other piece is I have to drag and drop my stuff in here. So I'm going to go back and pin this up to finish off my local install. I'm not going to use the CDN for now, just so we can keep it local, right? And to make it more compatible for what we're going to be doing for the beginning. So I'm going to go into my content, because I've already downloaded Bootstrap, and I'm going to download a couple things. The first thing is it's bootstrap.min.css. I'm going to put that underneath my title. I'm also going to put that bootstrap theme.min.css, because I may want to use that. Put that underneath that bootstrap CSS file. And you know what? Maybe I'll even have my own. So I'm going to add in, just for good measure, I'm going to make another one. I won't use this today, but I'll put it in. I'll call this main.css. And I'll put that, after I've created it, I'll throw that in underneath my the last little bit piece there, because in cascade order, we want to put the, kind of the ones on the top and then our custom CSS at the bottom. We also want to put a little bit of comments in here for our master, right? So that's what we're working on right now. and we'll say something like CSS, oops, if I can type CSS section, right? So that's our CSS section for that. And now we have to add in on the bottom, before our body tag, we want to add in our JavaScript, right? Because the JavaScript makes CSS go. We need our jQuery, and if you notice, I got the latest version of jQuery 2.1.4 here. I'm going to drag in this min.js file and put it on the bottom, just before our body tag. And underneath the jQuery, because you need jQuery for Bootstrap to work, you're going to put in this bootstrap.min.js file and put that underneath. And then I'm going to put a comment so that you guys can catch up. That's going to say something like this. You know, and that's our JavaScript section. Right? It's just commenting. You should probably do this too. You know what? Might as well, since we're already commenting, might as well continue to comment throughout our code. And I'm going to put this inside the HTML piece of our document. And here, I'm going to add in some comments about who I am and all that kind of stuff, which is probably a good practice, like something like this. So, you know, something like, you know, author, me. You can put this anywhere you want, and it's not going to disrupt anything. It's just comments. And then something like web app name, COMP2007, oops, 213, lesson 10, part 1, you know, whatever you want to call yours. I'll be okay. Let's do that again. COMP2007. See where my brain is? 213. All right, COMP2007. I did it right here. 2007, thank you. And then maybe a date. That would be good. So let's go into absent-minded professor. You know, creation date, something like that. Creation date. And maybe just July 16th, no? 2015. Which is good. I'm kind of dating my video too. All right, so I've got these little pieces of information here. You could certainly put that in somewhere else. You could also add in some more meta tags for your description and what the thing's about for if you want to increase your SEO. We don't care about that right now. It's out of scope. So we're going to continue to move on. So I've got to add in a couple of comments. And in here, if you remember, I always, around my placeholder, because this is where all my stuff is going to come into play, and around my form itself, right, I want to create kind of a div tag, a container tag that holds in my that kind of activates my Bootstrap. And remember why I do that. I go div with a class of, you know, container fluid. Container dash fluid. And if I press tab, and the reason why it works for me is because I'm using Visual Studio Web Essentials for Visual Studio 2013 with update 4, right, or higher. Okay, so there's my container fluid, right? And I want to kind of surround this stuff. I want to take this div tag and surround my main form with it, so that way my main form has a fluid container kind of around it from a bootstrappy perspective. Okay, and the other thing I want to kind of do here is this is a great place to add in additional things for my for Bootstrap. So anything else I want to add in here, I want stuff to kind of flow before my body tag, right? And again, this is where our main content is where our main content is going to appear for our page. I want another placeholder, right? So that way, you know, depending on what I put in there, one of them is going to be our navbar, right? A navbar placeholder. So we have a placeholder right here, content placeholder, right? Well, if you look at our toolbox, let's go to our toolbox. And this is our ASP.NET toolbox. We have a bunch of different things here. So we have a placeholder, just placeholder by itself, right? And if you notice our placeholder tag, I'm just going to unpin this one. I can add a placeholder tag that kind of swims around, just like I do here with our form, right? I can add another placeholder tag that swims around our tag, so that we can add in additional information. So I can tag it. All right, so that's all I'm going to do. So it's going to be inside my form, right? Which is going to be, I'm going to have my div tag that I have my main content that's going to run. But inside this div, I'm going to put in a placeholder tag like this. Drag and drop. Okay, and if you notice, it's not content placeholder, it's just placeholder. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to change the ID here, right, to, and again, I can call it main nav, nav not logged in, nav not authenticated, nav public, nav private might be better. So I'll say nav, I'll call it nav public or public nav, whatever you want to call it. Maybe public nav might look better because public and private are first, so public nav. There we go. What's that? Under our toolbox, if you look at toolbox, you can drag and drop our placeholder right now, right? So public nav, it's not going to affect anything. It's just going to be something I'm going to fill in here, right, with placeholder. Again, if this doesn't work, we can move this out. But it gives us something we can target with C#, right? That's what it does. It kind of gives us a container that we can look at with C# and turn on and off, right? Think of it this way, right? Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. So our public nav, right, is going to be there. And hey, I want to put a nav together, so you know what I'm going to do, right? Snippets. I'm going to go BS, and it's not the other BS, right? I'm going to go BS dash nav and press tab, right? And if that doesn't work, right, I've probably put it in incorrectly. Let's try it again. I'm going to go into my code snippets. So I think it's control. If I go to tools, and then I go to my code snippet manager, right, and under Bootstrap, right, I want to put it in nav. I think it's Navbar maybe. I just forgot what it was. Navbar. So if I do it again, let's go into try that out again. So I go bs-navbar and tab, and then all of a sudden, bam, I get all that. Because that way I don't have to copy that stuff from the web, right? I don't want to do that kind of thing. That's a pain in the ass to do, right? So I get all this stuff here. Yeah, so instead of me having to copy all this, it's here. I see what I did. I saved you time and effort and money too, because time is money, right? Okay, and now I want to take all this crap here, right? This navbar, and I did it there because it would work there. I know it would work there. I'm going to take this whole thing. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to put it inside our public nav container. So let's drop it in there. Okay, so now that I got it in there, I'm going to just to appease Steve because he's the formatting Nazi, right? We're going to right-click here, and we're going to go Format Selection, right? And then underneath here, we're going to kind of fix this up because this is like crazy, right? I don't need all this stuff. Hey, what's this icon bar stuff anyway? What is this icon bar? When you see on Bootstrap, for those people who are getting to know Bootstrap for this course, when you see these 3 icon bars, what are they? Does anyone know? Put your hand up. Yeah.
So if you're on a phone or a small screen, the icons of the links show up?
It's the hamburger, right? That's what those things are. So this little hamburger in Chrome, if you bring up Chrome, this little Chrome here, those are the lines. Each icon bar is a class, and it actually formats it with 22 pixel width and about a 2 pixel height, right? And it actually fills it in with white or whatever the transparent color is of the background, and it creates this thing from scratch as opposed to loading in an image. It doesn't load in an image. It actually makes that icon bar with the border and everything else, and that's what those 3 lines represent. Okay, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. We want to keep that the same, because I don't want to change that. This Navbar brand, I want to change to what we're doing, and what we're doing today is a to-do list, right? So we're going to say COMP2007 to-do list. Right, here's our to-do list. That's going to be our Navbar brand. It's going to be pretty big. Okay, and then as we scroll down, we've got a couple of other sections here. One of them is this. This is our left navbar, right? And we also have over here, right? We have a couple drop downs and a right navbar. I want to keep both of them for now. Okay, so the reason why I'm going to do this is I don't need my drop down, so this drop down crap can go. That's the first drop down. I'm going to get rid of that. And I've got my active link. Here's my active link. And this is good if we're not using, if we weren't just using ASP.NET. We're going to get rid of the active link for now. We're going to talk about that. I'm just going to name this link home if I want to go home, right? And maybe here we're going to have other links. Like maybe, for example, in my when I'm not logged in, I just want me, like a contact us, maybe even an about us. But I won't have anything else. Like I'm not going to have anything else that, what else we have to do, because we want to hide these things until we're logged in. So we'll say this will be about us and contact us, home, about us, and contact us, these 3 links. And then what we want to do, right, is I want to take away this form, right? So this is the form. I'm not going to do a search in my toolbar. And here's my UL for my right. So there's two nav bars, right? I've got almost like 2 nav bars. One that's on my left, which is navbar nav, and one that's on my right, navbar nav, navbar right, right? Navbar right basically pushes it to the right. It uses relative positioning to actually position the bar to the right, right? That's what it does. And I've got my link, and guess what this link is going to say? Log in, right? So we're going to change this to login. We don't have a login yet, but we will. And we're going to get rid of all this drop down. This another list item here. There's a drop down. We're going to get rid of it. And the only thing we're going to have in our UL is this login link right now, right? Now you might want to think about doing a register link here too, right? If you're, sometimes you see a login or register, but I like to kind of see it in the same place, like kind of an account, my account, whatever, login, whatever you want to see it there, or register. You could make it a separate register page if you want to. Let's, for the sake of what we're going to do here, just because I want to show you some flexibility, let's say login and or register, right? But we're not going to have our login or register page when we're logged in. We only want to have a log out, right? So here's login, and we want to register with a second link. Maybe register and log in, register first, then log in. That'd be more often how we see it. And if you notice, there's no links right now to any of this stuff, right? We know our home is going to take us back to /. That's probably what that's going to do, our link. About us, we don't have an about us page. We'll change that in a bit. We don't have a contact us page. We don't have a register page. We will. We have to get there as well. So how do we add in local pages without breaking stuff later on? We want to add something like this, / and maybe we'll call this, a register.aspx. We don't have that right now. Maybe I'll register with a capital R, just keep it with the regular way. And our login, we definitely want to put in a / and a login.aspx. I'm doing this all now in preparation for what's going to come later, right? About, we don't have an about us page, but we will, about.aspx. And our contact us page, right? Here's our contact us page, which is our contact.aspx. Okay, so we got a couple of placeholders for this kind of stuff. And that's going to be really, in a nutshell, what our nav is going to look like. And this is our public nav. Okay, so just to test that this all works, I've got a master page. Yeah.
You need to put it in the placeholder, right?
I put it in the placeholder. Yeah.
It is outside of the placeholder for public nav.
That's bad. I should have put this in the placeholder, but you know how it is. It should have been right here. How about that? It would have given me an error anyway, but let's just put that in there. So there's my placeholder. It's in my public nav. Let's test this. I want to create a couple things. One thing I do need to have is right now is a default page, right? And now that I have my default master page, I create my default page by right-clicking on my project, going Add, and then going Web Form with Master Page. That's what I have available. You can also go into New Item, Add New Item, and if you don't have that, you can skip to the top where it says Web Form with Master Page. Both ways will work. I'm just going to do it down here. Show you again, Web Form with Master Page. It's going to ask me what my default form is going to be called. I'm going to call it Default, right, or Default Page. I'm also going to target Default Master, not the Site Mobile Master that came with Bootstrap. Okay, so let's just click Default Master, right, and press OK. Okay, so this is my content, and I have my head and I have my main content, but if you notice, I don't have my other placeholder, right, because it's not a content placeholder, it's a placeholder. Right, let's see what happens when I run this now. First, I want to change my page title to say kind of welcome, right, kind of a welcome page, and we'll say COMP2007 to do app. Okay, and let's run it and see what happens. Running Chrome, and then what it's going to do is just going to run the basic page. If I've styled it correctly, you're going to have default styling, and you should see this nav bar, right? With register, links, login, home, about us, and contact us. Yeah. Now we did that very quickly because we used our BS snippets, right? BS snippets, Bootstrap snippets, which we want to start using from now until the end because you know what? We don't have time. Okay, so this is good. We've got our page. If you don't like it, and if you want to make this your page black, right, you can certainly do that. And I think it might be good for you guys to see it in black because of my contrast, right? So I'm going to change this thing, and who remembers how to change that? If I go back to default master page, what do I change in here to make my nav bar black? Anyone remember?
Navbar, not default, like inverse?
Yep, that's the one, inverse, right? And by the way, you can style your navbar. There's all kinds of little sites out there that really redo your navbar so it looks like your way you want it. Please don't give me a black navbar for your project. Make it so it's your own. Use your own colors. Unless you make your project black and white, which would also be very boring. All right. Okay, so let's see what that does. The effect it has on our navbar when I refresh the page. Now I should have a black navbar. There we go. A little bit, so you guys can see that a little bit better. And that's what going to be our starting page. I also want some kind of, in here, some kind of some basic styling, right? Hey, guess what? I have Jumbotron available to me. So I could put that in here in my main content, right? If you notice, I have content placeholder for main content. This is my main content. And this is most likely where I want to put this because it'll inject inside my page. Now, sometimes what happens is this. Watch. If I type BS and then something like Jumbotron, what happens is sometimes it doesn't come, right? It may not come along, right? So just be aware. If you do that, sometimes it won't come in. There's my Jumbotron. If I was to save this and go back to our main page, right? So let's go back up there to refresh the page really quickly. Then I see I have a Jumbotron, right? I got my Jumbotron in there, like welcome to my page, something like that, which I'm going to put in here. So my Jumbotron setting is going to say something like, welcome to our to-do app, welcome to COMP 2007 to-do app. Okay, that's what it is. And some more lower MIPSM text we're going to say, come one, come all. Come one, come all. To the best to-do app. I'm tired. In the Woiled. We'll spell Woiled like that. Why not? All right. Instead of world, just to make it a little differently. What the hell? And let's just, when we do that, we will refresh our page and see what it says. And we got that comp welcome. And if we notice it's now, we've got some responsive stuff. It does work this way with our Jumbotron taking up the most space. We may want to also put in around our Jumbotron some kind of row, right? So I'm going to go div, right, with the class of row. I think it's important for us to do that. And around our div row, we want to kind of encapsulate our Jumbotron around our div tag. And I'll reformat this now for Steve, because that's just bad. That's just bad formatting. It's like Hook said in in Peter Pan, bad form. Okay, let's go to here, row Jumbotron. And what we also want to add in is a couple of other classes. Maybe we could add another div tag that basically says how much of my Jumbotron I want to take, or I can just simply add it into my Jumbotron section. So I can do something like, column, medium, kind of thing, 12. So it takes up 12 columns, right? And I also could change the another container to make this almost like a container instead of a container fluid. So I can do one of these. So I can make it so that there's a little bit more spacing around everything. So if I go back now and refresh, if I've done things correctly, then I have a bit of a. Oh yeah, that didn't do what I wanted to do. Let's try that again. Well, what it does, it actually makes it so it takes up 12 columns, but I want to make it so that my outside of my row, probably what I have to do is right here, I want to just something like div, container itself, right? Because I want to make it so it's a container, so it gives me a little bit more space around everything. Let's see if that works. And just with a little bit of this stuff, I know it takes a little bit of time and patience with this, and we can always go to the Bootstrap site to check and see if we did it right. That's what I wanted. So now we get a bit of space, right? If I didn't want to make this 12, and if I wanted to make this something like 8, how would I make it so it's smaller and I have 4 of my offset? I could do something like right offset 4, right? Column, medium, offset 4, which pushes things to the right, or to right 4. So if I wanted to push this over, give more margin without using any CSS, I could use Bootstrap CSS to do that. And I could do that by simply something like this, saying maybe this is only 8, 8 columns as an example, and my first, I want to push this to the right, so column, medium, kind of push 2. So I don't need to use all my 8 columns. I could do that. And that'll push it 2 to the right, right? So pulling pulls it from the right, right? Pushing pushes it to the right. So if I go to refresh, and I want to pull this in, so now it's going to tighten it up a little bit, right? So it tightens it up in the middle. And if I want to center my, how do I make my center, my title and all that stuff in the middle of my Jumbotron? How do I make my H1 tag center everything? How do I do that? Text center. So I go target my H1 tag, and I put a class in there of text center, not capitalized, text center. It's already capitalized. And let's see what that does to everything, right? It kind of centers this stuff if this is the effect you want, right? I probably want to do it for my my paragraph as well, if we're going to do it for that, just to make sure it looks the same. So if I'm doing it to my paragraph and I'm doing it to my H1 tag, I might as well do it to my div tag. So I might as well just ask this text center into my div tag container. So everything that's in my text, everything that's in there is also centered. Let's see if how that works. And so that I center everything, including my stuff in there, right? Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this class. Okay, so a bit of changes, not too much crazy stuff, just some kind of start page is what I wanted to get here, okay? All right, so now we got a start page, and I want to get into some other stuff. So let's go, we'll leave our default master for now in the background, just because we're going to need it. And what if I want to check if I'm authenticated. If I'm authenticated, we want to have another tag. So I'm going to say, well, we have our public nav. We have our public nav. Let's use this whole thing here. Let's copy this whole thing and the nav bar all the way down to here. Here's our nav, right? Where is it? That's too much. Here's our nav, right? And here's our placeholders from the bottom placeholder all the way up to this placeholder. And by the way, if you ever want to comment properly, I can always copy this. This is a good way of doing it. Copy this ID. Go all the way to the bottom just so we know where it is. And here's our bottom placeholder here. And we could put in a comment that kind of includes our ID, right? So we know this is our public nav. This is where our public nav ends, right? And it's kind of a good way of doing it. So I'm going to copy this whole thing and then go down to my public nav, make a space. Hopefully Steve won't get mad. And then put this in. And now we're going to make this our private nav, right? So here's our placeholder. But now if you notice our placeholder ID changed, because that's what ASP.NET does for us. So make this private nav, right? And our private nav right now, by default, will also show up. So let's make both show up at the same time. We still want to make it a container of fluid. We still want to make this collapsible bar and everything else. But we have our home, about, and contact. This is the same, right? But you know what else I want? To do, right? I want a to-do list. That also is something we can get to that we can't get to, as an example, with when we have our regular stuff, right? So I'm going to grab this, right, and go here, right? And we're going to change this to do. Actually, we'll change it to, it's going to be to do. It might be to do's. Just give me a second. And then / default. You'll follow me in a second, default.aspx. We don't have this right now, but we will. Again, we're just kind of building right now. So now we're going to call this to-do list. Okay, and we're only going to show this nav bar when we're logged in. All right, so let's go and show them both first. And by the way, see we have register and log in. We want to have a log out link, right? A log out link here. So instead of a log in, I'm going to take this away. And I want to make it so that you can log out. So I don't have a log out, but I will make a log out page for a second. Logout.aspx, it'll do something, right? And it'll say log out. We may change that later on to something else. Okay. Well, we have these two links. Okay, so we have the same kind of idea. We have two, different nav bars, one private, one public, contained in these different containers. And if I run this thing the way it is, I should see both nav bars now, right? I should see one on top of the other, and then I should see our stuff. If you notice, one is log out, the other one has register and log in. Register and log in is when we're not logged in. Log out is when we're logged out, right? we want to log in. We also have this to-do list available to us, this extra link, when we are logged in. We don't have to-do list here. We don't have access to it here, right? So that's two examples, kind of thing. We can add as many different things here as you want. You can also change a lot of the way this also looks, right? Okay, so how do I make it from a CS perspective? So we're going to do our C#. What do I do in my C# to make this go? Well, we know a couple things. Let's pin this up first. We know that our default master page also has in the back end a default master CS, right? So let's go there. If you notice, there's a page load. So on page load, this is our event. On page load, check to see if I'm authenticated. And if I am, show my private navbar. And if I'm not, show my public navbar. And it should be an else. And the reason why is every other case, if I can't check that I'm authenticated, show my public navbar. First, let's see if we can hide my private navbar. And how do I do this? So I'm going to say this, if, I'm going to type in the word user, dot, oops, not user, user, dot, and then, if I say user dot, and I don't have that, how come I don't have a user, right? Well, let's see if it works, first of all. We may not be able to do this right now, because if you notice, I only have user, and if I go this, it says using system web providers entities, huh? So that's the one I want. I want this user web providers entities added in there, otherwise I won't have user. Now that I have user, right, I can start typing in my stuff. So user dot, and then, that didn't do it. That's not really what I wanted, because I can put if user, equals, well, that's not really what I want, right? So let's see if I can go into one step further to see, if I can get that. And the way to do that, of course, is just to kill this. We may have to come back here, and you'll see why in a second. So entities dot, and again, Control Tab. We don't see that there's an option for user in there, right? So let's leave it as is, providers entities. But this is where we're going to go in and check to see if our user is authenticated. We're going to check user to see if that's possible, right? Okay, so this is the way. But for now, we're going to deal with two navbars. One that shows authentication, one that doesn't. We're going to get back in here after we scaffold a little bit because we need to, right? Because once we create our scaffold, it creates our user stuff in the back end that allows us to do all this stuff. Phew. Okay, let's do the next piece. So I've got this piece. This is where I'm going to add in my default master.cs. I'm going to add in my if statement. I can't do it right now. But what I will do is I'm going to add in another page called login. Right? So I'm going to right click onto this top page here, or my project. I'm going to add a new web form with master page. And I'm going to call this login. Okay, I'm going to pick the default master and press OK. And then it gives me my login page, right? So here's my login page. So in my main content, right, in here, I want to add in a couple things. I'm going to put some spaces in here. On my toolbox, now this is the fast and dirty ugly way, because we're going to fix this. Yeah?
I don't know if this is a dumb question, but for some reason you haven't put the master page in a folder. Is that by
making it, yes. Yeah, making it so it's easier for us so we don't have to do .. squiggly sometimes. For now, leave the master page where it is. You can certainly put it in its own folder, but you're right. It could go in its own master pages folder, which includes other master pages, which is probably where it should go. For our example today, I'm going to just leave it in the root. Okay. Okay, so let's go into our toolbox, and I want to drag and drop, go all the way down to where it says login. There's a login section, and I want to put in this login status thing. Now, when I say drop this in, I put in login status, right? And if I was to go on the design side, and I hate doing the design side, now you know me, right? But there's some options, right? If I go to my the design side, I can choose logged out, right? So again, it says views logged out, change the current view, or I can choose logged in, right? Logged in or logged out. Let's leave logged out, just the default view for now, and see what I'm talking about. Okay, go back to source, right? So here's our login. And if you notice, if you want to change that, I can pin this back up here, this properties. And if you notice, I'm hovering over my login status control, and on the right, you've got all these properties, right? And if you notice that there are there's different options that you can deal with on the right-hand side, this is something that you may want to hit something else. For example, I've got my log out action, which is a refresh. I got my log in text right, which is a login. I can also have a login image URL, and then I can also have a login page URL, log out page URL. So I go to a specific page when I log out. I don't have that yet, but I will, right? Because we're going to make a logout page. Okay, so that's one thing. Now I need to log in. And what we want to do is we want to put our login before our log status, right? So we're going to kind of drag and drop our login inside of our log status. Okay. Now what we get is if I go to design, I see this, right? Kind of a default, log in. Okay, do you guys see that? If I was to run this form now, so if I go to kind of run it in Chrome, and it should take me into login.aspx, that specific site in my project, I get this. Do you guys get this?
Yep.
Well, there's a reason for this. Okay, there's a couple reasons for this, and this is where I spent some time troubleshooting and debunking the rule that something is definitely wrong with ASP.NET Web Forms. All right, what the hell is wrong with it? Because it wasn't me, baby, right? I tried it out 20 different times, and there's nowhere that really says to do it except for if you go on the web to find out what this is. It's because we're doing this Web Forms unobtrusive validation mode, which we have to add in. We need a couple of other things, and if I on my PowerPoint slide, I do include it later on. I do include it later on. I'm going to go down here and show you what the script is that I need, right? I need this. I need under my system.web, in my web config, I need this fix. In my web config, I need to put in Authentication Mode Forms. That's the first thing I need to put in. So I got to go into because I won't work without it. So I got to go into, let's go into Stop Debugging. How about that, Tom? And go into Solution Control and pull up this web config file. So I'm going to double click there. I'm just going to unpin these for now so we can see more space. All right, so there's my web config, and it looks pretty big and nasty, eh? Don't be alarmed, because this is how it should look, big and nasty like this. Okay, if you notice, I've got my system.web tag in my XML document, and what I need to put under my system.web tag, I need to put in this authentication mode is equal to forms, and you can just do that by just putting a space in here and just start typing, and IntelliSense will come up with authentication. Authentication, and then mode is equal to, and if you notice there's only different options, passport, Windows, federated. I want forms. And I want to put a backslash closing brace. And the reason why is if you press just a closing brace, it'll actually add another tag you don't need. All right, so that's the first thing I need for my forms to know that I'm using my, my form, right? That's the first. Second thing I need when I do this is I also need to put in another little workaround. And if you notice, now above this, I need to put in these two lines, app settings, and this long key value, which I'm going to type in with you. So I'm going to copy this. And this is important because otherwise it won't work properly. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go here. And so above this system.webconfig and below the config section is where I'm going to type in this stuff, which is app settings. Right, so an app settings key, and I want to put add key. I'm going to put it up here so you can see it bigger. There it is. Oops. Validation settings, unobtrusive validation mode, value is web forms. Now, if you want to take away your error, you can just put value is none. Right? If you put value is none, then it won't do web form unobtrusive validation. This is the fix for this stupid problem. All right, that does not contain in your book, and that I had to search for and work out myself, which is a pain in the ass. By the way, Rich and I just talked about it this morning, and he's like, "Yeah, man, all you have to do is put none," and I'm like, "Damn, I'm gonna do." Which I knew about, but I was like, I was hoping that he was going to make it so that he was going to use the other way, where I'm going to show you how to do it, which is to actually put a little bit of JavaScript code or C# code, sorry, inside of our global ASAX file, which actually does validate our forms. So let me know when you guys are finished copying that in. Who's not done? Okay, I'll let you do it a little longer. And then once you've got this in, you got it all in? This is one part. If you put none right now, let me show you what this does, okay? Before we put in any extra code, right? If I can put in here, instead of our value is web forms, I can put our value is none. If I put value none in here, And if I rerun my application, right, as an example, and I go back, I'm going to see two toolbars, right, because I started with this. If I go back to login, right, it takes me to login. It actually works now. My login screen does work, and it's very badly styled. We have to worry about this later on, right, how to fix this up. So I don't want that. And I also want to kind of take me to a register page here, right, as an example, or create a register page over here so I can register if I'm not already registered. Like right now we're not registered, which is a bad thing, okay? So let's just get out of this for a second, okay? Okay, and I'll stop debugging. So let's add that back in. So that's the easy way to do it. Here's the hard way to do it. And by the way, I will allow either way in an exam, or I will allow either way if we do authentication with a, yes, what's the problem?
Is there any benefit to using web forms that we do? You would say, which one would you use?
Web forms, because it gives you more unobtrusive validation, right? So it gives us a validation, additional validation parameters for Jquery, if you want to use Jquery validation. That's what it does. It helps us out. But again, if you don't have to, in our example, and even in this course, you probably won't gain anything from it. But I want you to see it because if you go to the workforce and you try this stuff out and it doesn't work, you have the fix. Here's the fix. So if I go back to my PowerPoint presentation, I need to add this stuff into my form. I'm just going to make this a little larger for you guys to see this. I'm going to make it just extremely large. Here's the fix. I want you to take this, right? And hold on, before copying it, I want to take this whole script manager thing, right? And in the video, you can see this. That's why I put it up so big, right? And then I'm going to take it across. I'm going to save my web config file. It's complete now. And I'm going to go back into my Solution Explorer, right? I'm going to pin this up. And I'm going to go into my global ASAX file, right? And in here, I'm going to unpin this now. Underneath my root config register roots, which we put in earlier, I'm going to put in, kind of copy in, oh, not that one. And of course, people are calling me because this is what they do when I'm here. I'm going to copy this thing, that's what I meant to do, and put it in here, right? So what does this look like? And of course, there's a problem. Script manager, script resource mapping, .add definition, Jquery, and then script resource definition. If you guys type this in, yes?
I was going to say, can you post this on Blackboard?
Oh yeah, everything will be posted. Everything will be posted. Not right now, because it'll take too long. But if you want to type it in, it's a good exercise anyway.
All right.
And then, but if you notice my script manager has an error, what do I do to fix it, Steve? How do I fix my script manager error? What do I do? What's a quick shortcut? I just go over it like this, right, and Control dot, and it gives me this using system web UI. You can also type this in if you want to, but I don't want to type anything, right? So then it fixes my problem. So what is this doing anyway? Why am I doing this stuff? I'm just going to kind of make this a little bit smaller. Sorry. Why am I doing this with you? Why am I giving you the hard way? I told you I want you to have all the details you need in order for you to do it. If you're going to do this in industry for whatever it, and if you wanted to use this, this is not a workaround. This is actually what you do with Jquery. You actually register Jquery. You can certainly register resources in a different way as well. This is just one way. But we're doing it here at the global ASAX point so that we know where our CDN path is if you want to find Jquery from a CDN. And we also have our local path to scripts Jquery -2.1.4 and our minified both of our files. The debug path and the regular path are the same in this particular case because we're not really doing a lot of debugging. If I wanted the debug path, realistically, there shouldn't be a min with the debug path. It should be the unminified version, right? But we're going to leave it as is. And I'm going to do is, we're at 11:26 here. We went for a good hour and a half now. I think it's a great place to take a break. So before we continue on, so I'm just going to slightly before you guys continue, I'm going to put it back, but I'm just going to tab over here and.